Codemotion.
Hello everyone, my name is Myron Campbell, and the title of my lecture is Make Something Ugly, an Experimental Creative Process. So I'd first like to thank Codemotion. Everyone at Codemotion has been so gracious and so amazing. It's been such a fantastic holiday. My wife is enjoying herself, she's just over here. And we've had a great time, so I just wanted to first say thank you so much. So I'll jump right in. In the spirit of ugly, I wanted to show a few ugly photos of myself. This is a Halloween costume from a few years ago. I was a roadie for Metallica. It's just a costume. The mustache is real though. And this photo is the main reason why I stopped growing a mustache. This is after 30 days, I think. So I stopped my, you know, I would keep it and I would keep trying, but my wife, she disagrees. So I'll listen to my wife. I like to make her happy. So hence, no mustache, clean shaven. So I'll tell you a little bit more about myself other than I can't grow a mustache. I've been teaching interactive design full-time for the last 3 years at Vancouver Film School in Canada, and while also completing my master's in media arts at Emily Carr University of Art and Design. So before that, I was working as an art director in an interactive studio. Now I'm a senior instructor at the school, but I'm also an artist, so it's a bit of a balancing act. You know, I really like this liminal space, though, this hybrid space between art and design. I feel like all my work has that discipline of being a designer, but the expression of being an artist. So one of the first courses I taught, which I still teach now, really stemmed from the ideas that I'm going to share with you today. It's called Experimental Practices. And it takes place in the last half of the program where students have learned a lot of the tools, and now they're asked to explore the tools, experiment with the tools, put the various techniques into practice. So basically, it's my way to encourage the students to maintain a personal practice of some sort and introduce experimentation into their process. So some of the exercises I give them are based on surrealist parlor games. The surrealists had tons of little experiments that they did that would ultimately feed into their larger works. Jean Arp and André Masson are two of many that practice automatic drawing. The surrealists use this method as a way to tap into randomness and the subconscious into their work. So as a way to free themselves from convention and access meaning unavailable through traditional methods. So another exercise which I really love is Exquisite Corpse, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Multiple contributors, there's often just guides of where the previous drawing ended. You add on to it and you fold it out at the end and you see what you come up with. The surrealists are great because these exercises are still relevant and they're very freeing and allow for a lot of unexpectedness and that randomness. So the results of the course have been really fun. The first day is called No Pixel Day, and I get them with paints and watercolors, dry medium, just to create textures where they could later scan into the computer for digital use. We have a remix day, where someone starts a piece under a certain theme, and then every 10 minutes someone adds to that, and you can see we do screen capture movies and play them at the end of the class to see how the piece evolved over time. We do a digital version of Exquisite Corpse. So all of these are done using Adobe Illustrator. So we give them all the same guides so that everything lines up perfectly. And I also give them a few other limitations like no stroke on the shapes, a range of color to choose from so they all unify in some way. And it's great for the students because they see their style next to other people's style, and that randomness, that happy accident occurs. And it's that kind of thing I love to cultivate in this course. So I'll use myself as a bit of an example here too. When I finished college, I missed having assignments to challenge myself. So I began making art projects just to learn new tools and new tricks. So for a time, I was trying to perfect the art of digital collage. So I met this painter from Belfast, and she let me scan in all of her paintings. They're on the left there. And then I would remix them, add to them in Photoshop, only spending a few hours on them. So I'd stay after hours at the studio I was working at. While everyone else was at home, I'd just crank these out, adding a layer of narrative, interpreting what she was doing, and putting my own meaning on top. A lot of them were coming really quickly, really fast, and they were a lot of fun. So at the same time, I started doing Flash tutorials and taught myself how to animate. And this, along with all the other artwork that I was doing, I was posting it online and allowing anyone to come and take a look at it. And it was from that personal work, that stuff I was doing on my own time, that started to attract clients and studios. So the Trailer Park Boys. Does anyone here even know the Trailer Park Boys? So it's a little TV show in Canada, really kind of goofy and vulgar. But they looked at my work and they saw there was some potential here to do the website for them for their second season of the show. And this was great because I was finally getting paid for doing the type of work that I would normally just do in my own time. I had that freedom, which was great. And the brief, the creative brief, was like a dream come true. They asked me, please make this website as vulgar as possible. It needs to have a lot of alcohol, drugs, women, swearing, as much as possible. So great, right? Like, yeah, sure, that sounds fantastic. So they trusted me to do a good job because of the stuff they saw online. So I also got a gig from CBC's Street Sense, another TV show in Canada, making animated bumpers for segments of the TV show. And because I was so practiced in digital collage, I was much more confident in taking on these projects and delivering that style. And then I started to get a lot more work and that similar style. And so as a working designer, you're like, yes, yeah, I'll take that. I can do that. That's accessible for me. It's very easy because it's something I'm so practiced in. The problem, though, is that I was getting burnt out on the style. Just like that, burnt out. I just wanted an excuse to use those fire transitions in Keynote. I'd never seen anyone use them before, so I had to, okay, anyway. So the problem is that I was getting burnt out, and I was getting in a rut, just cranking out the same style over and over again. And I know that we've all been there. Everything I was doing was starting to feel the same, and it wasn't as fun. And then, like magic, I stumbled upon this. And I need to make a bit of a confession. I'm very, very jealous of my 8-year-old self. And I'm not 8 years old, and I couldn't find a picture of myself when I was 8 years old. I think I'm 3, but you get the idea. So I found this at home one year, and it's not a drawing, I just colored it, but it was that expression, the stroke, you know, of the marker, like it didn't even finish it, and I tried to spell my name with every color in the marker packet, and then I got to the end, and I didn't have enough space, so no problem. I'll just dash and put the L's underneath. And it was just like this freeing, liberating feeling that I got from this that I wanted to recreate in my own work. So I took it home with me, and I got addicted to painting. I was trying to capture the same essence with these paintings. And this is just painted on garbage. Like, I think you can kind of see the label of one. They're photo boxes I found in the back alley. They look like canvas, but they're not at all. It's like cardboard. It's garbage. I didn't care about showing it eventually or being archival. I just knew I needed to paint. And then I started doing drawings. First, drawings of robins, over and over, sketchbooks full of these robins. And then on to other birds. 1 year later, I had made dozens of paintings and hundreds of drawings of birds. And I couldn't stop there either. I wanted to bring this into the computer, used digital tools to realize this even further. I took textures from the paintings and implemented them into the digital piece and try again to capture what I found originally in the robin. And then I picked 5 other drawings of birds and used them as a basis for more digital work. So I'd take them in and literally use them as a guide to, again, try and just capture what I had in those original, really free-form drawings. And here's a final version of the seagull. So with creating art, it's very easy to understand that one might start with really small experiments that lead towards larger pieces. We understand that, you know, when looking at most artwork, there's been this period of exploration, contemplation to get to this point. And for the most part, unless there's looming deadlines or exhibits or grants, commissions, artists have the luxury of time to carry out their experiments into larger works. So then the question arises, you know, with a designer or a developer, how do we stay fresh and energized How do we also develop a range rather than get stuck in one particular approach? So I believe it's all about being okay with making something ugly. And I feel like I probably should define ugly, since what I think is ugly and you think is ugly could be really different. But for the purposes of this talk, ugly isn't just ugly. Ugly is like strange. So ugly is that feeling you get when you're making something. That feeling where you're not sure if you love or hate what you're doing. And that way, ugly is unfamiliar. So it's that feeling of something new. We know this place. You guys know this place. We long for this place, this climax of creation, a pinnacle, the spark, the aha moment. A writer friend of mine, he calls it the magic hour. So it's our fuel when it's 2 a.m. and the world's asleep. We got headphones on. We're in that zone when the magic starts to happen. Then you wonder, where did this come from? Like, how did I get here? How did I do this? And it's so exciting and so addicting. And you can also associate this feeling with the most memorable albums or movies or art or music that you've experienced. And where you've loved, but at first maybe thought, what the hell is this? Like, I can't associate this with anything I've seen before. I don't know if I like this. And then weeks later you say, I love this. And it's this kind of contradiction that's great. It means something new is happening, something innovative and something fresh. So ultimately, it's about being okay with failure. And this isn't a new idea, this being okay with failure. When you start researching it and Googling it, there's tons of really great quotes by great people spinning failures into positives. So the problem might be with the word failure, and it's so defeatist when you hear it. It has such a negative connotation to it. Imagine if you were able to just accept that there will be a degree of failure in everything that you do. Then it's not called failure anymore, it's just called process. So as a scientist, it's your job to experiment. To innovate anything, a new vaccine, for example, as a scientist, you have to experiment and document your research. So why should it be any different for a developer or designer? It should be our job to explore and discover, to make observations, to test things out, and to be okay with making failed attempts, knowing that this will lead us to that successful and innovative end result. So, some examples. Who's doing this? In fact, there's tons. There's lots of people, way more to mention. But I do want to just point out a few. And one is this really great designer, STEFAN SAGMEISTER. And he does this fantastic TED Talk about how he approaches monotony in design called The Power of Time Off. So I definitely recommend you check that out. He realizes from this graph that we have 25 years spent learning in the beginning of our life, around 40 years working, and then 15 for retirement by the time we hit the age of 80. So instead of waiting for his retirement, he decides he's going to slip in some retirement years into his working years so that every 7 years he takes a year off. No client work, he just shuts the doors and develops his own process and his own practice. So it's essentially a sabbatical, but not a lot of designers or design studios will take that on. Being a seasoned designer, he knows that there's a problem with working in design, and he recognizes that in himself. We reuse ideas, and everything starts to look the same. And then he mentions that, all the work that he'd done in that experimentation flows back into his regular client work, and now he has an arsenal of work to draw from. Another great example is Josh Davis. And what inspired me in his early days is here's a guy who builds systems in Flash to execute composition, to incorporate that balance of order and randomness. And if he didn't have a big commission, he would spend 8 hours a day just working on his own stuff. And I've been to a bunch of his talks, and I'm always fascinated with the way he approaches his work and how he articulates his process. He draws from everything from Asian throw rugs to botany to physics in order to find inspiration for his work. And then that spills into his client-based commissions. These 3 posters are a BMW series he did to celebrate the new car. And all of these abstract compositions were executed from the same system, but you can see they're slightly different. And that when it's printed out, that file is destroyed. You have an original digital print, which is fantastic. James Patterson runs a site called presstube.com, and he often collaborates with a programmer friend of his, Amit Pataru. He's one of the main reasons I'm speaking today, and even just acting as an artist or designer. I've been watching his work since 2000, when everyone started to go crazy on the internet and making art and installations and using Flash to change the web. This guy was nonstop, and he still is that way, constantly making. Makes me feel lazy. But I've seen him working as a programmer, an illustrator, an animator. He's made toys, paper airplanes, software, live performances. That's a guy who draws every day, and right now he's making a code journal where you can just watch him build a project. So James always just inspires me to just keep making. Just make and make and make and make. Someone might see it, someone might want it, but if they don't, who cares? I learned so much and I had so much fun in the meantime. I can share that work with others. Jared Tarbell, his attitude is it should be replicated like 100 times over. He primarily identifies as a software artist. When he's not a teacher or a developer or a co-founder of Etsy, he's working primarily in ActionScript and processing. So similar to Josh Davis, Jared is part of an open source culture and has dedicated a career to experimentation. So James, Josh Davis, Jared Tarbell, these are examples that remind me to share what I've learned online and to contribute to a collective knowledge. So he also has a website, levitated.net, where people can explore his experiments. Oh, sorry. And then he sees the importance of both the programmer and the community. When you release open source experiments, others will adapt and modify and extend what he's creating, forever enriching like the craft of development. So I'll switch gears a bit and talk a little bit about some studios who are implementing this experimentation into their studios. So in most all of the studios that I spoke with, they would refer back to Google's 20% off day. So it's where the employees can, on a Friday or one day a week, just work on whatever they want. So other places have done that, like lots of places. Apple has a Blue Sky initiative, which is very similar, where people can just create new tools and new products. But it's limited to a small group of employees, not everyone. LinkedIn has a similar thing called Incubator. And again, everything that's created on those days, those free days, are tools to serve LinkedIn ultimately. So these are great and all, not perfect in all cases, since there's still a bit of pressure on how to create a new tool that's profitable for the company. However, it does show that the culture of these studios is changing and evolving. So I'm going to use a couple motion design houses to illustrate my point here. This is Giant Ant, a motion design studio in Vancouver in Canada. And as you can see from their demo reel, they have a really wide range of style, very diverse. While researching them a bit, I found out that they have this thing called the 7-second project. And so this is where they let their employees just go free. And in 7 seconds, they have to tell a story, whatever story they want. So it's really, really open. It's a way for their employees to kind of let off some steam and just make with no limitations, no rules at all. But I'm going to show you one. Disclaimer though, there's graphic material I'm about to show. So don't say I didn't warn you. If you're offended, I really am sorry, but you should close your eyes if you're easily offended. Sorry, that didn't go through the speakers, but I'm sure you could be offended without the audio and the speakers too. I like how everyone just kind of perks up when you say you might be offended. Then the next slide. So let's take another one here.
It was on a family trip when we went to Hot Tub Noon. He said, "You've got heritage balls," and handed me a Coors Light.
So this is what happens when you let young, nerdy motion designers create whatever they want. They're going to be, they're perverts, right? Like it's just what happens naturally with young guys. They're just going to be perverted if you let them. So, they're having fun, they're learning new tools, but after talking to them about this project, this 7-second project, I found that it's not something they do consistently, and if they have work, client-based work, happening, then they just drop them completely. And also, it's not accessible on the website. It was actually really hard to find these. I had to find them on the motion designer's personal sites. And so it's not really benefiting Giant Ant in the big picture. And you're not going to really show clients this stuff right away to attract them to your studio. It's just not going to work that way. But here's a place that does it right. This is world famous in a motion graphics studio in Seattle. And instead of really big in-house projects that ultimately serve the company, they chose to task their employees with small motion assignments. So not only that, but they want to house them on the main site. They give them a platform, they show them to the world, and they show that they're proud of them. And they draw potential clients and potential employees in with these assignments. So they're not totally open like the Giant Ant ones, thank God, right? So employees choose from a list of things. It's like break something, or my route to work, or the color green depicted without using the color green. So for example, they're very short, and they're given the deadline of 1 to 2 months to create them, and then they all get together and they'll watch them. But the thing is, they're not really worried and so much concerned with the end result. It's all about discovery and experimentation. So I interviewed the creative director and co-partner, and he said they're doing this to build a culture. And they all get together and watch them at the end of the month. They laugh, they have fun, they criticize, they learn. And they're all personal projects as well. They're coming from a personal place, so they learn about each other. And there's a bond that forms from this that brings them closer together. And as a result of that closeness, they also know what they're capable of as a whole. And they think as a team, not as an individual. And that's so valuable. And they end up really caring about who they work with, and that camaraderie shows through in so many different ways. They help each other, making sure that others don't get burnt out. So I see it as an investment, to improve the business. Even though there's no real clear dollars and cents attached, it's a risk like other investments, but ultimately it has the potential to improve the studio experience and have a lower turnover rate. People aren't quitting often, so then they have less training hours and less work establishing new relationships and partnerships. People want to stay at World Famous. They don't leave. They're excited to work there. And okay, well, they had one person quit, but the guy's wife left them and this house burnt down. So that's a bit of an exception. Maybe he couldn't grow a mustache either. So that's an exception. But I mean, they ultimately believe that creativity is king, and they know this is going to just only benefit their work. Alex Beam runs a company called Tangible Interaction in Vancouver, Canada as well. And basically, they're an interactive installation company. So they've done work for clients all over the world, and his approach is really interesting. And we hear often design studios taking that human-centered approach, right, where you're listening to the needs of the target audience first and giving them what they need. Tangible is very much the opposite. They do have a research day, but when I was talking to Alex, he said they probably spend 80% of their time experimenting and doing research, and maybe 20% of the time actually working on client-based work. So it's very much a practice-based approach, where they don't create work for clients necessarily. They create work that they want to make, and the clients lease it from them. So the clients want the work because of that blood and sweat and passion behind it. So as a result, they've worked with many music bands like Arcade Fire, Green Day, Purity Ring, as well as other clients like MTV, Chanel, Blue Man Group, and others. But they've found a success in this approach, this practice-based approach. So, designers and developers, what can we do to stay creatively fit? I think I'm like obsessed with mustaches or something, I think. And I just keep looking at your mustache, it's so great, and I just have nothing. But anyway, let's go. So what can we do? Well, you can draw. Simple, right? So the easiest thing for you to do is to start drawing, sparking new ideas. Drawing is a very, very powerful medium that crosses all creative disciplines. And there's something really freeing about just grabbing a pencil or pen and drawing. And something happens in the brain when you do this. There's something amazing this woman, Linda Berry, who speaks so brilliantly about drawing. She says that when you're drawing or doodling, you're actually triggering the same parts of the brain that are active in kids when they draw or when they're in imaginary play. And we all drew when we were kids, all of us. Apparently, my daughter likes me with a mustache as well. But I mean, who doesn't look good with a golden mustache, really? So, but let's see, okay, so Linda Barry says in an interview, if you were to give a piece of paper to a kid with all these great materials and they didn't draw, you'd think, what's wrong with you, you know? But if you do that same thing to an adult, they'd say, whoa, I can't draw. You know, so what happened? And so, according to Barry, we started putting judgments on drawing and decided, well, we're good at drawing or we're bad at drawing. That's just it. But for those of us who do draw, we know that this doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, there's a good chance that it won't be, but sometimes we surprise ourselves and we love these surprises. It becomes fun because nothing is set in stone, and you can make mistakes, and eventually you will come up with something really interesting. So my love and respect of drawing has led me to start this drawing party in Vancouver called Draw by Night. And at Draw by Night, people come together for a night of social and collaborative drawing. And here we'll see designers, programmers, artists, actors, writers, animators, you name it. We're all sitting at a table drawing together. And in 4 years that the party that Draw by Night has existed, we've had almost 30 parties. We'll have the next one the next month to make 30. They've all been themed, and some have had live music. Once we had a writer read from his book while we drew. We've drawn outside. We've been in gallery exhibitions at festivals, and we're always at Maker Faire Vancouver every year with a little drawing table set up. And we've expanded, have a chapter active in Germany. They just had a party a couple of nights ago, and I can't say the name, Cologne. Usually what happens is we roll out huge sheets of paper on long tables so that everyone can contribute to the drawings. Nothing is sacred, and most everyone leaves their drawings there afterwards. So drawing can be this really liberating and inspiring experience. But what you can also do is just make short, digestible projects for yourself. So something that you can do fast and that are achievable, not really long and daunting. So these were just when I was first learning Flash, like way over 10 years ago. And they were just tests. I was hacking through open source files, just playing around, trying to get myself familiar with the tool. And in that way, it's kind of like professional development. You're only going to get better the more you do. And if you can make projects for yourself, you'll be updated with new techniques. And when you put it that way, it just makes sense. So what else can you do? There are these fantastic books by a Vancouver author, Carrie Smith. This one is called Wreck This Journal. It's just a book about, basically ways to destroy the book. So it's first crack the spine, spill your coffee here, chew on this page, take it in the shower with you, throw it off a balcony. All these really fun things to do to just wreck the book and make it like really disgusting. Well, you don't have to make it disgusting, I make it disgusting, but you can do whatever you want with it. So also, Codemotion, of course, like here is a place where you can do so many different things. Wish we have a dance, like, yeah. All right, no. So we can dance. You want to all get up? We can have this intermission, right? That's great. Water break, that's okay. So there's meetups, there's hackathons, there's workshops. There's so many things you can do to just be active and in your community and just build up your tools. The Maker Faire, like you've seen kind of plastered around, that's a fantastic place to just get connected. And GitHub is fantastic. And then Frankenstein, I had a space in the slide, I just needed to fill it up, so I thought, why not? Anyway, yeah. So the main objective here is just to basically have your own thing. So you can only go so far in a client project, and it's important to find a way to be okay with that. And that it can be frustrating always working under limitations. So maintaining a personal practice alongside your client-based work is something that's yours and yours only. No one can touch it. And you can let it evolve on its own, and no one can tell you otherwise. When things go wrong or sideways at work, you always have this to go home to. You have this as an outlet to do whatever you want. And there's a motion designer from that world famous studio, well, not world, world famous. He says, don't wait for someone to pay you for the project that you want to do. That's great advice. And ultimately, once you start doing that, they'll come to you. So you want to create your own work. You want to make tests. You want to make experiments, and you want to show them off, show them online. It becomes an extension of you as a designer or as a developer. And it shows not only your range and style and technique, but more importantly, it shows a level of dedication and passion to the field. When employers see this, they can feel and sense that passion. And they want a piece of that. They want to be next to that. And it's important to just take time and invest in yourself. So when I talk about this, I often get the question, like, how do you find the time? And when really, like, it all comes down to finding the time is as easy as making the time. You just make time for these things. It's important. Like I said, you invest time in yourself. So that's us. I think what I want to leave you with is just, be okay with making something ugly. And I think that is something that should always be encouraged. So thanks.
Codemotion.